this idea, like you're saying, like, I think that in one respect, well, I think in with the kind of the umbrella over all of this is like, what are we really after? Because when you speak about, pushing the top jumpers, that makes a lot of sense to me if you are an entertainment sport, right? Like that is kind of like with gymnastics, like it's the same thing. You really only focus on the top of the top because that's the most entertaining to watch. But at the same time, like you're saying, you cannot ignore the what keeps the wheels turning. Granted, I don't know. I'm not deep into sports organizational behavior and structure, so I don't know the back end. And I definitely am not in the rooms where discussions are happening with those organizations. But I do agree that there's so many options and ways to move with jump rope. Like what can we add to this? And I've spoken to Devin about this, and I've spoken to Mike Fry, and I have talked for many, many hours about this idea of like different ways we can integrate, whether it's competition or whatever it is. We can add events or some other way to put up the community, and the Olympics thing, because now you've got me on a tangent. I kind of want to speak about this. I'm curious what your thoughts are on this too. With the Olympics, I've been thinking a lot about this because as a competitor, that's like, you're like a year into jump rope and you're like, why are we not an Olympic sport? Because if it were only based on merit, we should be there. And the more I think about this and the more I kind of dig into it, the more I wonder if having a goal of being in the Olympics is the right type of goal to have. Because when you kind of peel back the layers, what would achieving that do? And I see a lot of, it would give us credibility. And I see that term used a lot. And the more I kind of dig into what we truly achieve from being in the Olympics and getting credibility, the more I wonder if the core of that is truly is more about the pride versus do we access something that then builds up the sport? Like, is there a secret group of Olympic sports club that then gives you all the formulas you need to run your organization? I don't know. I don't think that's the case, but like maybe I'm wrong. You know what I'm saying? So like when we actually sit down and kind of work through that, it's like being in the Olympics is not merit based only. There's definitely rules around it, and then there's also a huge entertainment piece, which is, I mean, the Olympics exists as a company to make income, and their income is based upon eyes in the audience, right? So you have to entertain those people. So that's a huge piece of it. Again, not an expert, but when you actually think through it like that, I wonder if rather than trying to get into the Olympics, maybe spending our time on the back end and the not so glamorous pieces of the sport might actually serve us best, because we may achieve the Olympic result in doing this different task. Does that make sense? I'm curious what you think about that, because I know like we've talked a lot over DM, and I know like you are very active and you care very deeply about the sport, and I want to know what your thoughts are.
So I think the first question to ask, because I agree that maybe credibility is the right word to use for the Olympics, but what is credibility, and is the Olympics the only way to get there?
Mm-hmm.
Probably not. I think if you think about something like football, you see a lot of really famous football players inviting young children to come and play with them, and you have, oh my gosh, my youth league got to play in an NFL stadium, that's so cool, and all of these things. And it's not about the Olympics or some overarching hierarchy of whatever. It's getting people in the sport, and we don't have enough people right now in the sport to, I guess, care about it. Like if you think about gymnastics in the Olympics, it's super cool and all of that. But if you think about, and I know we don't think about the young children that are training at gymnastics clubs all over the States, all over the globe, but they're the people that watch gymnastics in the Olympics. They're them, their families, their friends. Anyone who knows somebody who's done gymnastics will check out gymnastics in the Olympics. And that adds I don't know what the word is, but it adds how difficult it is, because you've seen your daughter work on her cartwheel for months and months and months, and then you see somebody doing 3 backflips in a row, and you understand how difficult it is. And people see jump rope, they don't necessarily understand how difficult it is.
Well, they think, usually don't cross. Even, they don't even know what's happening most of the time. And not as a put down, but like they don't have the awareness to see what's happening.
Yeah. And so I feel like if we can get more people just knowledge of what jump rope is in a competitive sense,
Mm-hmm.
I think we'll have a much larger audience that we can do a lot with. You need a large audience to do almost anything that we could, set our sights to do.
Mm-hmm.
And right now we don't have that audience. And even if people see it on TikTok and think, wow, that's so cool. And, somebody like Jimmy who's gaining a ton of, followers, they just don't understand what it is that we're doing. So
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't matter how cool you think it is. If you don't get it, you don't think it's that difficult. You don't think it's, merit worthy. You don't think it's something that should be in the Olympics because you could do that super easily. And so until people start to understand what we're doing, I don't think something like the Olympics is the right way to go.